What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, undefeated 3-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, currently the WBO welterweight world champion, who is widely considered by many to be the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, Terence Bud Crawford. He hasn't landed that big, significant, high-profile, high-lucrative legacy fight in his career as of yet. He was doing so by trying to seek a showdown with legendary 8-division world champion, iconic Filipino superstar boxer, Manny Pacquiao. And he makes for 50% of the biggest fight currently in the sport of boxing between himself and undefeated unified WBC IBF welterweight world champion superstar boxer, who is widely considered by many to be top 3 pound-for-pound fighters in the world, in Errol the True Spence Jr. But Terence Crawford, 37 wins, no losses, no draws, 28 wins by way of knockout. He is 33 years of age, stands at 5'8", with a 74-inch arm reach. Last time we saw him in the ring, November 14th of 2020, when he took on and defeated former IBF welterweight world champion, British superstar boxer Special K Kell Brook. He did so in dramatic fashion. But Kell Brook was not viewed as the same guy he once was years ago. Okay, he's viewed as being seen past his prime. Kell Brook hadn't fought at welterweight in over 2.5 years. Kell Brook hasn't had a high-profile fight since losing and getting stopped to Errol Spence Jr. in his backyard and losing his title in the UK. So Kell Brook is just not viewed as the same guy. With that said, for the better part of 5-6 years, Terence Crawford has been trying to secure a mega showdown with Manny Pacquiao, but has been unsuccessful in doing so. And this is due largely, in fact, to his promoter, legendary promoter, top-ranked CEO and promoter, Bob Arum. Bob Arum has stated on numerous occasions he essentially prevented Terence Crawford from getting the Manny Pacquiao fight. Plain and simple. He stated most recently that he could have made the fight for Terence Crawford for June 5th, but they didn't feel like they would get a return on their investment, so they didn't make it happen. Then when Bob Arum was asked about Errol Spence making a fight with Manny Pacquiao, Bob Arum, he says, well, they found out a way that they could see a return on their investment when they did their number crunching, and we couldn't. So Terence Crawford, he sat down with Hall of Famer, legendary, former pound-for-pound king, retired, undefeated, 32 victories, no losses, no draws, Andre S.O.G. Ward. Score relentless. Go check it out. It was a build-up to his fight with Kell Brook. Andre Ward, he asked him, what's your to-do list? What's your #1 objective should you beat Kell Brook and get past Kell Brook? And he stated his #1 objective was to secure a fight between himself and Manny Pacquiao. And then that #2 was to secure a fight between himself and Errol Spence. Well, Bob Arum, once again today, he has doused the Errol Spence fire, as he stated that Errol Spence doesn't want the fight. He don't want to talk about Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. He says that Errol Spence is going to leave the division because he knows he can't beat Terence Crawford, and he doesn't want to have a conversation about Errol Spence. So Errol Spence recently, he did multiple interviews in which he stated, should he get past Manny Pacquiao, August 21st, he wants to fight with Terence Crawford. Okay? He says if he can't secure the fight, he says he's going to cross the street, knock on top ring door, inform Bob Arum he wants the Crawford fight, and try to begin negotiations. Bob Arum, he's not even willing to negotiate with Errol Spence because he says Errol Spence doesn't want the fight. So, fast forward, Brian McIntyre, Bo Mac, trainer, manager of Terence Crawford, he states that he and Terence Crawford, they don't give a hootenanny about Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence. He refused to answer any questions about that fight. He used, I'm paraphrasing, he used other words, obviously. to describe that fight. And essentially, he's saying, who cares about them? Well, the management, which is Brian McIntyre, Bomac, and the promoter, which is Bob Arum, they dropped the ball. So to say to that, essentially you're placing blame on Manny Pacquiao, and Bob Arum is confirming that Manny Pacquiao would have taken the fight with Terence Crawford if they would have negotiating, decided to give him the money he was looking for to make the fight happen. But Bob Arum, he stated that they were looking for investment groups to put up the money because they themselves, as a promotional company, don't want to put up the money because they don't want to lose a return on their investment. So because the investment group in Abu Dhabi fell through and backed out, then he said, we backed out of the Pacquiao negotiations because we didn't feel that it was worthy, it was lucrative for them to enter a fight with Manny Pacquiao and guarantee his purse because he's a high-profile fighter. And essentially what they're saying is they don't believe in Terence Crawford's drawing power, that they don't believe that they could get a return on their investment. That is the management's job. That is the promotional team's job to make sure Terence Crawford secures the fight. So Manny Pacquiao, he went in a different direction and immediately got a deal done to fight Errol Spence. Errol Spence was in negotiations to fight WBA champion, Cuban star boxer, Yordenis Ugas in a unification bout. Once Manny Pacquiao became available, Manny Pacquiao wanted the next biggest fight for himself, the next biggest lucrative fight, and he chose Errol Spence. And from reports it was easy to get done. So Errol Spence has done 3 straight pay-per-views. He let Terence Crawford know, I'm the biggest star outside of the ring. My brand is bigger. I'm doing bigger pay-per-view numbers. 60-40 split in my favor. That didn't bode well for Terence Crawford and his team or Bob Arum. And so they said that Errol Spence was pricing himself out. When you look at the numbers, Errol Spence has done 3 straight pay-per-views. Mikey Garcia fight did 350,000 pay-per-view buys. 4-division world champion Mexican superstar boxer. A Hall of Famer he fought. Then he fought 2-time welterweight world champion superstar boxer who's a Hall of Famer, or at least on the verge of being, Sean Porter, and he did 325,000 pay-per-view buys. Then he fought 2-division world champion, former junior welterweight unified world champion, former WBC welterweight world champion, who could very well be a borderline Hall of Famer himself, if not a Hall of Famer, in Danny Swift Garcia. And it did 315,000 pay-per-view buys. Now, Terence Crawford has done 2 pay-per-views. One with Victor Postol, that, according to Bob Arum, did 60,000 or less pay-per-view buys. And then he did a fight with Amir Khan that did 150,000 pay-per-view buys. So you take the latter, 160 and 150, 150 and 60, that's 210 combined pay-per-view buys. 210,000 pay-per-view buys combined. So you take the lowest pay-per-view event of Errol Spence's career with Danny Garcia at 315, and that's still 105,000 more pay-per-view buys than 2 of Terence Crawford's combined pay-per-view buys. So when Errol Spence said, I'm the biggest star, I'm doing the bigger numbers, and I'm fighting the better opposition, as Terence Crawford stated, he's yet to secure the lucrative, high-profile legacy fight. So he's admitting he doesn't have that guy on his resume. And so Errol Spence said 60-40, and Terence Crawford said 50-50 or no fight. And then Bob Arum said 50-50 or no fight. When it's only fair that Errol Spence gets a bigger share of the pot because he's carrying the heavier weight. Plain and simple. And he's doing the bigger numbers, and the proof is in the numbers. The proof is in the pudding. So he's doing the bigger numbers. So he says 60-40. Terence Crawford then was asked about 50-50. If Errol Spence comes with you 50-50, are you going to take it? And he says, no, this fight is in my rearview mirror. They are dropping the ball on Terence Crawford's career. And Bomac, trainer and manager of Terence Crawford, Bob Arum, promoter of Terence Crawford, are dropping the ball and placing blame and trashing Manny Pacquiao and Errol Spence fight, saying we don't care about that fight. We don't give two about that fight. They used other words to describe the fight and the fighters. So you're upset and you're mad that they were able to come to an agreement and get a deal done, and you wasn't. Because your promoter, as Bomac stated, when Keith Thurman asked for $10 million, Bomac stated Keith Thurman is pricing himself out because he doesn't have a promoter. Well, Manny Pacquiao was signed to Top Rank and Bob Arum. And Bob Arum, he stated, he prevented the fight from happening. He stated, I blocked the fight. Manny Pacquiao was signed to Top Rank, and they couldn't get a deal done. And yet, he said when Keith Thurman, unified former world champion, superstar boxer, asked for $10 million, he was pricing himself out because he didn't have a promoter, is what Bomac stated. So if the promoter is the reason that these fights can't happen, then how is Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao fighting? How did Sean Porter and Keith Thurman fight? How did Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman fight? How did Keith Thurman fight Manny Pacquiao that Terence Crawford couldn't fight? How did Errol Spence fight Danny Garcia, Mikey Garcia, Sean Porter, and now fighting Manny Pacquiao? How did Manny Pacquiao fight Adrian Broner, Keith Thurman, and now fighting Errol Spence? I mean, they're all mixing it up. Danny Garcia has fought Errol Spence, he's fought Keith Thurman, and he's fought Sean Porter. They're mixing it up. The odd man out is Terence Crawford. Largely in due part to his promoter not wanting to put up the money necessary to make these fights happen. So they don't have a promoter, but they're making the fights happen and making the big money. He has a promoter, and these fights are not being made. But Bomac is saying he's pricing himself out because he don't have a promoter. It's not adding up. And they're wasting time. And Terence Crawford is 33 years of age. He'll be 34 years old by the next time he steps in the ring, and would have been out of the ring for nearly a year if the fight takes place October 23rd. Bob Arum, he stated it might not even take place October 23rd. It might take place after that. So if that's the case, he would have been out of the ring out a year, and he's 34 years old. Somebody's doing Terence Crawford a disservice, and it's not Errol Spence, Manny Pacquiao, Keith Thurman, Sean Porter, and Danny Garcia. So he says that Terence Crawford is going to come back with a vengeance, and everybody's in trouble. Come back from what? Why is he on the shelf? He shouldn't be on the shelf. It was told to the public, the boxing world, that he would be back June 5th. How did he go from June 5th to October 23rd? That's a major gap in between. A fighter of his talent sitting on the shelf. And they're blaming Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao and trash the fight. Wow. That's all I got for y'all, man. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share the videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.
Hi, my name is Heather the Heat Hardy, and you're watching Blue Blood Sports TV.